My name is Elena. And 3 months ago, the man I was supposed to marry looked me straight in the eye and said, I'm not introducing you to my wealthy friends. You're too embarrassing. I should have walked away right then. I should have thrown the ring in his face and never looked back. But I didn't. Because I loved him. Because I thought love was supposed to conquer everything. Because I was a fool. His name was Marcus Ashford. 6 feet of polished charm, designer suits, and a smile that could sell ice to Antarctica. When we met 2 years ago at a charity gala where I was working as an event coordinator, he swept me off my feet. Flowers every week. Handwritten notes. Weekend getaways to vineyards I couldn't pronounce the names of. He proposed on a yacht under the stars, and I said yes before he even finished asking. I thought I knew him. I thought we were building something real. I was wrong about everything. The comment came on a Tuesday evening. We were in his penthouse apartment, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. I was excited, talking about the upcoming gala at the Whitmore Country Club, one of the most exclusive venues in the state. Marcus was a member. His entire social circle would be there. Old money families. Business tycoons. The kind of people who appeared in Forbes and threw around millions like pocket change. I can't wait to finally meet everyone properly, I said, pouring myself a glass of wine. Your friends, your business partners, everyone who's important to you. Marcus didn't look up from his phone. About that. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. About what? He set his phone down slowly, deliberately, like he was choosing his words carefully. Elena, I've been thinking. Maybe it's better if you don't come to the gala. The wine glass felt suddenly heavy in my hand. What do you mean, don't come? We've been planning this for weeks. You bought me that dress, the emerald one, specifically for this event. I know. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. But these people, they're different. They come from a certain world. They have certain expectations. Expectations? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Marcus stood up, walking to the window. He wouldn't look at me. You're amazing, Elena. You're kind, you're smart, you work hard. But my friends, they're going to judge. They're going to see where you came from, how you grew up, and they're going to make assumptions. Where I came from? Heat flooded my cheeks. You mean the fact that I wasn't born with a silver spoon? That I worked my way through college? That my parents are teachers instead of trust fund managers? Don't make this about class, he said, and I almost laughed at the absurdity. Then what is it about, Marcus? He finally turned to face me. His expression was cold, calculated, like he was in a boardroom negotiation instead of talking to the woman he claimed to love. You don't fit in with them, Elena. The way you talk, the things you reference, your sense of humor. It's all just too different. You'd be uncomfortable, and honestly, you'd make me uncomfortable too. The words hit like physical blows. I'd make you uncomfortable. I'm trying to build something here, he continued, his voice rising slightly. My father's company, these connections, they matter. Image matters. And showing up with someone who doesn't understand that world, who can't navigate those conversations, who embarrasses me in front of the people I need to impress. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. You think I'm embarrassing. I think you're not ready for that level of society. Maybe one day, after we're married, after I can introduce you gradually, help you learn the ropes. But right now? It's too soon. You're too rough around the edges. I set the wine glass down carefully, afraid I might throw it. Too rough around the edges. That's what you think of me. I'm being honest, Elena. Isn't that what you always say you want? Honesty? No, Marcus. What I want is someone who's proud to stand next to me. Someone who doesn't see me as a project to be polished and perfected before I'm presentable enough for his precious friends. He sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Like I was the problem. You're overreacting. I'm just trying to protect both of us from an awkward situation. Protect us. Right. I picked up my purse, my hands shaking. I'm going home. Elena, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I laughed, and it came out bitter and sharp. You just told me I'm too embarrassing to introduce to your friends, but I'm the one being dramatic. I'll call you tomorrow when you've calmed down. When I've calmed down. Like my anger was irrational. Like my hurt feelings were an inconvenience he'd deal with later. I left his apartment that night with tears streaming down my face, mascara ruining my silk blouse, my entire world tilting sideways. I drove home to my modest 2-bedroom apartment, the one I'd worked 3 jobs to afford, and I cried until my throat was raw. But somewhere around 3 in the morning, the tears stopped. And something else took their place. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. Marcus Ashford thought I was embarrassing. He thought I wasn't good enough for his world. He had no idea who I really was. And he was about to find out. The next morning, I called my mother. Not the woman who raised me with bedtime stories and homemade cookies. The other one. The one I'd spent the last 8 years pretending didn't exist. Elena. Her voice came through the phone surprised, cautious. Sweetheart, I didn't expect to hear from you. Hi, Catherine. I never called her mom. That title belonged to Sarah Martinez, the elementary school teacher who found me on her doorstep when I was 10 years old and gave me a home. Catherine Whitmore was something else entirely. A complication. A past I'd buried deep. Is everything all right? She asked. I need to ask you something. The country club. Whitmore Country Club. You still own it? A pause. We do. Your father and I own it together. Why? Is there a gala scheduled there next Saturday? The spring charity gala, yes. The Ashford family is hosting. Very prestigious event. Elena, what's this about? I took a deep breath. I need you to get me on the guest list. Actually, I need more than that. I need to be introduced as your daughter. Publicly. In front of everyone. Another pause, longer this time. You've spent 8 years refusing to acknowledge our relationship. You changed your last name. You wouldn't let us help you through college. You've kept us at arm's length since you were old enough to make that choice. And now you want to suddenly be our daughter again? Yes. My voice didn't waver. I do. May I ask why? Because someone needs to learn that judging people based on where they think they came from is a dangerous game. And I'm about to teach him that lesson. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, there was something new in her voice. Something like respect. This wouldn't happen to involve Marcus Ashford, would it? The man you've been seeing? How did you know about Marcus? Darling, I'm not blind. I've seen the society pages. I've seen you in the background of photos at various events. I've watched you hide who you are from him. From everyone in his circle. He told me I was too embarrassing to introduce to his friends, I said quietly. He said I didn't fit in his world. He doesn't know that his world was built by people like you. Like my biological father. Like me. And now you want to show him? I want him to choke on his assumptions. Catherine laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Oh, sweetheart. You're more like us than you've ever wanted to admit. I'll make the arrangements. But Elena, once you do this, there's no going back. Everyone will know who you are. Your privacy, the normal life you've built, it all changes. I understand. Do you? Because once the secret is out, you can't put it back in the box. You'll be Catherine and Richard Whitmore's daughter. You'll be an heiress. You'll be exactly the kind of person Marcus Ashford wanted to impress. I know. And I did. I'd spent 8 years running from this legacy, determined to make it on my own, to be defined by my choices instead of my bloodline. But Marcus had pushed me too far. He'd reduced me to something small and embarrassing, when the truth was anything but. I'll have the invitations sent over, Catherine said. And Elena. Wear something devastating. I hung up the phone and smiled for the first time in 12 hours. The next few days were a careful dance. Marcus called me, texted me, acted like nothing had happened. Like his cruel words were just a minor disagreement we'd move past. I let him think that. I was sweet, understanding, apologetic for overreacting. I told him I understood he was under pressure, that I knew his career was important, that I didn't want to cause problems. I'm glad you see it my way, he said on Thursday night, his voice warm with relief. I knew you'd understand once you calmed down. That's what I love about you, Elena. You're reasonable. Reasonable. Not intelligent. Not strong. Not worthy of standing beside him. Reasonable. Of course, I said softly. I want what's best for us. That's my girl. I'll see you on Sunday. Maybe we can have brunch, make up properly. Sunday sounds perfect. Because by Sunday, everything would have changed. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of day that seemed designed for garden parties and champagne. I spent 3 hours getting ready. Hair swept up in an elegant chignon. Makeup subtle but flawless. And the dress. Oh, the dress. Not the emerald one Marcus had bought me. That was packed away, a symbol of who he wanted me to be. Instead, I wore midnight blue silk that hugged every curve before flowing into a dramatic train. Vintage Dior, borrowed from Catherine's extensive collection. Sapphire earrings that cost more than my car. Heels that added 3 inches to my height and made my legs look endless. I looked like money. Old money. The kind that didn't need to announce itself. I looked like exactly the kind of woman Marcus Ashford wanted to impress. Catherine and Richard picked me up in their Bentley. My biological father looked at me with tears in his eyes. You look just like your mother did at your age, he said quietly. Thank you for doing this, I replied. Thank you for letting us, Catherine said, squeezing my hand. Whatever happens tonight, I'm glad you called. I've missed my daughter. Something twisted in my chest, but I pushed it down. Tonight wasn't about reconciliation or family healing. Tonight was about revenge. The Whitmore Country Club was everything you'd imagine. Sprawling grounds, immaculate gardens, a clubhouse that looked like a European manor. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Men in tuxedos, women in couture. The air smelled like money and privilege and exclusivity. Marcus's world. The one he'd decided I didn't belong in. We walked in through the main entrance, and heads turned immediately. Not because they recognized me. I found him near the bar. Marcus Ashford in a custom tuxedo, laughing with a group of men I recognized from news articles and business journals. The elite of the elite. The people he'd decided I wasn't good enough to meet. Our eyes met across the room. His smile faltered. Confusion flickered across his face. He was seeing me, but his brain wasn't processing it correctly. I was supposed to be home, ashamed, knowing my place. I wasn't supposed to be here, wearing a dress worth more than his car, standing between 2 of the wealthiest people at the event. I watched him excuse himself from his group. Watched him start walking toward me, his expression shifting from confusion to concern to something that might have been panic. Elena. He said my name like a question. Like he wasn't sure I was real. What are you doing here? Attending the gala, I said simply. You remember Catherine and Richard Whitmore? The club owners. Marcus's eyes flicked to my parents, recognition dawning. Of course. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore. It's an honor. This is our daughter, Catherine said, her voice carrying a subtle edge. Elena Whitmore. Your fiancée, I believe. The color drained from Marcus's face. Your daughter? Surprise, I said softly. But your name is Martinez. You never said. You never asked. I tilted my head slightly. You made a lot of assumptions about who I was, where I came from, what I was worth. You never asked about my past. You just decided what it must be based on how I presented myself. Elena, I don't understand. Don't you? I let some steel enter my voice. You told me I was too embarrassing to introduce to your wealthy friends. Too rough around the edges. Not fit for your world. But here I am, Marcus. In your world. Except it turns out, I've always been part of it. I just chose to step away for a while. People were starting to notice. Conversations quieting. Heads turning toward us. You lied to me, Marcus said, his voice rising slightly. I never lied about anything. I told you my name was Elena Martinez. That's legally true. I was adopted at 10 by Sarah and Miguel Martinez. They raised me. They're my real parents in every way that matters. But biologically, I'm a Whitmore. I just didn't want that to define me. You let me think, I let you think whatever you decided to think based on your own prejudices and assumptions, I interrupted. I let you reveal who you really are. Someone who values people based on their last name and bank account instead of their character. Marcus's jaw clenched. This is insane. You're insane. You manipulated this whole situation. Did I? Or did you just show me exactly who you are when you thought there were no consequences? Tell me, Marcus, would you have said those things if you'd known the truth? Would you have called me embarrassing if you'd known my parents owned this club? If you'd known my trust fund could buy your company 3 times over? He opened his mouth. Closed it. No answer. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Elena. His voice dropped, urgent, pleading. Can we talk about this privately, please? Why? Afraid of making a scene? Worried about what people might think? I gestured around at the watching crowd. Funny how image matters so much to you. How reputation is everything. Right up until it's your own on the line. Ms. Whitmore. A young woman approached us nervously. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Amanda Westbrook. Your father mentioned you work in event planning? I'm on the board of the Children's Hospital Foundation, and we're looking for someone to coordinate our annual gala. Would you be interested? Before I could respond, a man in his 60s stepped forward. Elena Whitmore? James Chen. I knew your grandmother. Remarkable woman. I heard you've been working independently in events. We should talk. My company hosts several major conferences each year. More people approached. Introductions, business cards, opportunities flowing toward me like a river finding its course. These were Marcus's people. His connections. His precious network. And they were looking at me with interest, respect, admiration. Everything he'd wanted for himself, they were offering to me. Marcus stood there, watching his world embrace the woman he'd called embarrassing, and I could see the exact moment he realized what he'd lost. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Actually, I said, raising my voice slightly so everyone nearby could hear, I should introduce you all to my fiancé. Marcus Ashford. Although I'm not sure if that title still applies after our conversation earlier this week. All eyes turned to Marcus. The weight of their attention, their judgment, pressing down on him. Marcus told me I wasn't good enough for this world, I continued, my voice steady and clear. He said I was too embarrassing to introduce to his friends. He said I'd make him uncomfortable. That I needed to be polished and perfected before I could be seen with him in public. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Disapproving murmurs. I don't think, Marcus started. You don't think what? That I should share the truth. But you value honesty, don't you? That's what you told me when you were being honest about my inadequacies. Elena, you're taking this out of context. Am I? Then please, provide the context. Explain to everyone here how you weren't actually saying I was beneath you. How you weren't actually ashamed of me. How you weren't actually judging me based on assumptions about my background. He couldn't. There was no context that would make his words acceptable. No explanation that would salvage this. You know what's really funny? I continued. I chose to step away from all of this. The money, the name, the privilege. I wanted to build something real, something earned. I wanted to know who I was outside of my last name. And I was genuinely happy living a simpler life. But you couldn't even respect that. You couldn't see value in a person who worked hard, who built their own success, who didn't coast on family wealth. You only saw someone you could look down on. Someone who wasn't good enough for you. That's not fair, Marcus said, but his voice was weak. What's not fair is you making me feel small for being exactly the kind of person I wanted to be. What's not fair is you treating me like an embarrassment when I was working 60-hour weeks to build my business while you were living off your father's name and connections. What's not fair is you deciding my worth based on what you thought I lacked, never considering what I'd earned. I pulled off my engagement ring, the diamond catching the light one last time. I held it out to him. I don't need your ring, Marcus. I don't need your approval. And I certainly don't need to be part of a world that judges people the way you do. The irony is, I could have given you access to connections and opportunities you can't even imagine. My parents' network makes your father's look provincial. But you'll never know that now. Because you showed me exactly who you are, and I believe you. He didn't take the ring. Just stared at it, at me, at the crowd of people watching him be dismantled piece by piece. I set the ring on a nearby table and turned to walk away. Elena, wait. His hand caught my arm. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face. Let go of me. Please. I made a mistake. I was wrong. Let me apologize properly, let me make this right. You were wrong about me. But you were absolutely right about one thing. I pulled my arm free. This isn't going to work between us. Because I could never respect someone who only values me once they know my net worth. I could never trust someone who hides me when he thinks I'm nobody and claims me when he learns I'm somebody. You don't love me, Marcus. You love what I can do for you. And that's not enough. I walked away from him, through the parting crowd, my head high and my heart surprisingly calm. Catherine and Richard were waiting by the terrace doors. My mother's eyes were wet, but she was smiling. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. Can we go home? I asked. I'm done with this party. Of course. But as we walked toward the exit, a commotion erupted behind us. You don't understand. Marcus's voice carried across the room. This is all a manipulation. She's been lying this whole time. She played me. I turned back, watching him unravel. His face was red, his perfect composure shattered. He was gesturing wildly, appealing to the crowd that had turned cold toward him. She let me think she was nobody. She hid who she really was. How is that honest? How is that fair? Mr. Ashford. Catherine's voice cut through his tirade like a blade. She walked back toward him, every inch the powerful woman she was. My daughter didn't hide anything. She built a life using her adopted name, the name of the family that raised her with love and values. She never claimed to be someone she wasn't. She simply didn't advertise a connection she wasn't sure she wanted to claim. That's not deception. That's discretion. What she did, Catherine continued, her voice dropping to something cold and dangerous, was give you the opportunity to love her for who she is, not what she has. She gave you the chance to prove you were better than the shallow, status-obsessed men I've watched parade through these clubs my entire life. And you failed spectacularly. Mrs. Whitmore, I care about Elena. I love her. No, Mr. Ashford. You love the idea of her now that you know what she comes with. But the woman you called embarrassing? The one you said wasn't good enough? She's the same person standing in front of you. The only thing that changed was your knowledge of her bank account. If that changes your feelings, then your feelings were never real. Catherine turned back to me. Ready, darling? I nodded, and we walked out together, leaving Marcus standing alone in a room full of people who just watched him reveal his true character. The Bentley was quiet on the drive home. Just the three of us, the city lights streaming past the windows. I'm sorry, I said finally. For staying away so long. For making you feel like I rejected you. You were hurt, Richard said gently. We understood. We just wanted you to be happy. I wasn't sure I could be both. Happy and part of your world. And now? Catherine asked. Now I think maybe I can choose which parts of that world I want to be part of. I don't have to reject everything just because I reject the shallow parts. I can take the resources, the opportunities, the connections, and use them for something good. On my terms. That's very wise, Richard said. Or maybe just very angry. I laughed softly. That was probably the most satisfying and terrifying thing I've ever done. You handled it beautifully, Catherine assured me. Though I suspect this is going to make waves. By tomorrow, everyone in 3 states will know what Marcus Ashford said to you and how he was revealed. Good, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Maybe it'll make someone else think twice before they judge someone based on assumptions. Maybe some other Marcus out there will learn to look deeper. Or maybe not, Richard said. But at least you stood up for yourself. That matters. We pulled up to my apartment building, and I hesitated before getting out. Would you like to come in? I asked. I know it's not what you're used to, but it's mine. I built this life myself, and I'm proud of it, even if it's small compared to what you have. Catherine's smile was radiant. We'd love to. That night, I made tea in my modest kitchen while my parents sat on my second-hand couch, and we talked. Really talked. About the years we'd lost, the hurt we'd all carried, the misunderstandings that had kept us apart. About my adopted parents, Sarah and Miguel, who'd given me stability and love when I needed it most. About how family could be complicated and messy and still worth fighting for. They're invited to Sunday dinner, Catherine said firmly. All of us together. If you'll come. I'll come, I promised. I slept that night with a strange mix of peace and anticipation. The hard part was over. I'd faced Marcus, I'd stood up for myself, I'd reclaimed a part of my identity I'd been running from. But morning brought complications I hadn't anticipated. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. First my business line. Then my personal cell. Then emails flooding my inbox. The story had gone viral. Someone at the gala had recorded Marcus's meltdown, and it was everywhere. Social media, gossip sites, even legitimate news outlets were picking it up. Wealthy man calls fiancée embarrassing, discovers she's richer than him was trending on 3 platforms. My event planning business had a wait list by 9 a.m. Companies wanting to hire me, charities wanting to work with me, society matrons wanting me to coordinate their daughters' weddings. The opportunities were overwhelming. But so were the messages from Marcus. 53 texts. 14 voicemails. 6 emails. All variations on the same theme: I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I love you. I'll prove it. Please. I deleted most of them without reading. But one voicemail made me pause. Elena. His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. I know I don't deserve your time or attention. I know I showed you exactly who I am, and it's not someone you can respect. But I need you to know something. Last night, after you left, I sat in my car for 2 hours thinking about everything you said. And you were right. About all of it. I did judge you. I did make assumptions. I did value you differently once I knew your background. And that makes me exactly the kind of person I always claimed to despise. The kind of person my father is. The kind of person I swore I'd never become. You held up a mirror, and I hate what I saw. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect another chance. But I wanted you to know that you changed something in me last night. You made me see myself clearly for the first time. And I'm going to do better. Not for you. Not to win you back. But because I need to be better than this. Thank you for that. Even though I don't deserve your thanks. I hope you build something amazing with your life, Elena. You deserve everything good. I sat on my couch, listening to that message 3 times, trying to figure out what I felt. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something like closure. Like the final page of a chapter 1 was ready to finish. I didn't respond to any of his messages. Didn't reach out. Just blocked his number and focused on moving forward. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I hired an assistant to help manage the flood of new business. I had lunch with Amanda Westbrook and agreed to coordinate the Children's Hospital Gala. I signed contracts with 3 major companies for corporate events. My one-person operation expanded into a small team, then a full agency. And I started having regular Sunday dinners with both sets of parents. Sarah and Miguel, who'd given me everything when I had nothing. Catherine and Richard, who'd given me the gift of letting me go when I needed space. All of us together, building something new from the pieces of our complicated history. Life was good. Busy, overwhelming at times, but good. Then, 6 weeks after the gala, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello, Ms. Whitmore. This is Jennifer Cole. I'm a reporter with the Metropolitan Chronicle. I'm working on a story about Marcus Ashford, and I was hoping you might be willing to speak with me. My stomach tightened. I'm not interested in reliving that situation publicly, Ms. Cole. I understand. But this isn't about the gala incident. Well, Not directly. You see, several other women have come forward in the past few weeks. Women who dated Marcus Ashford. And they all have similar stories to yours. About being made to feel inadequate, being hidden from his social circle, being judged and criticized for not fitting his image of who they should be. There's a pattern here, Ms. Whitmore. And I think it's important that pattern be documented. I sat down slowly. How many women? 7 that I've confirmed so far. Possibly more. Most of them were from working-class backgrounds, just like he thought you were. He seems to specifically target women he perceives as beneath him socially, then tears them down systematically. It's psychological abuse masked as relationship dynamics. And they're willing to go on record. 3 of them are. The others want to remain anonymous, but they're willing to share their stories for background. Your incident at the gala opened the floodgates. These women saw that video, recognized their own experiences, and started reaching out. You're not the only one he hurt, Ms. Whitmore. But you might be the first one who was in a position to fight back publicly. I thought about those other women. Women who didn't have a secret trust fund or powerful parents to fall back on. Women who'd internalized Marcus's criticism, who'd believed him when he said they weren't good enough. What do you need from me? I asked. Your story. On record. With your permission to use your name and the details of what happened. I think it would help the other women to see someone like you, someone successful and accomplished, saying that his behavior wasn't acceptable. That it wasn't their fault. Will this hurt him? Professionally, I mean? Yes, Jennifer said honestly. It likely will. Companies don't want to be associated with someone who has a documented pattern of emotionally abusive behavior. He'll probably face consequences. Good, I thought. He should face consequences. I'll do it, I said. Send me the interview questions. I'll answer everything honestly. The article published 2 weeks later. Front page of the Metropolitan Chronicle, then picked up by national outlets. 7 women, 7 similar stories, a clear pattern of manipulation and psychological cruelty. My story was featured prominently, but so were the others. Women with names, faces, histories. Women who deserved better than what Marcus Ashford had given them. The fallout was swift and severe. Marcus's father's company issued a statement distancing themselves from him. Business partnerships dissolved. Social invitations dried up. He became a cautionary tale, an example of what happened when privilege met cruelty and got exposed. I should have felt triumphant. Victorious. Vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. Sad. Wondering how many Marcus Ashfords were out there, still hidden, still hurting people, still getting away with it because their victims didn't have the resources or platform to fight back. But I also felt determined. I used my growing platform to launch an initiative. A mentorship program connecting young women from underprivileged backgrounds with professionals in event planning, hospitality, and business management. I wanted to create opportunities for women who might otherwise be dismissed, overlooked, or underestimated because of where they came from. I called it the Martinez Initiative, after the family who taught me that worth isn't measured in bank accounts or last names, but in character and compassion. Catherine and Richard funded it generously. Sarah and Miguel helped recruit mentees. My event planning agency donated resources and job opportunities. Within 6 months, we had 50 mentees placed in internships and entry-level positions across the city. One of those mentees was a young woman named Jasmine. 22, brilliant, working 3 jobs to support herself through business school. She reminded me of who I might have been if I hadn't had support systems to fall back on. "Why are you doing this?" she asked me one day during a coffee meeting. "You've already made it. You've already proven yourself. Why help people like me?" "Because someone once made me feel like I wasn't worth knowing until he learned my net worth," I said. "And I never want anyone else to feel that way. You're worth knowing right now, Jasmine. Exactly as you are. With or without money, connections, or a famous last name. This program exists to prove that to you and everyone else who's been told they're not enough." 6 months after the gala, I attended another event at the Whitmore Country Club. A charity auction benefiting the Martinez Initiative. The room was packed with the same people who'd witnessed my confrontation with Marcus. But this time, I wasn't there to prove anything. I was there to raise money for women who needed opportunities more than they needed revenge. Amanda Westbrook approached me during cocktail hour. "Elena, this is incredible. You've raised over $300,000 tonight." "It's a start," I said. "But there's so much more to do." "I heard Marcus left the city," she mentioned casually. "Moved to the West Coast. Fresh start, apparently." "Good for him," I said, and meant it. "I hope he actually learns from this. I hope he becomes the person he claimed he wanted to be in that voicemail." "You're more generous than I would be." "I'm not generous. I'm just done carrying anger. It's too heavy." Later that night, as I stood on the terrace watching guests mingle and laugh and write checks for women they'd never meet, Catherine joined me. "You've built something beautiful here," she said. "We've built something beautiful," I corrected. "This doesn't exist without you and Dad. Without Sarah and Miguel. Without everyone who believed it was possible." "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Any of it? Marcus, the confrontation, going public?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. I regret that it happened. I regret that he was that person. I regret that 7 other women had to suffer before there were consequences. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret using my privilege to expose someone who was abusing the power dynamics in his relationships. And I definitely don't regret what came after. "You turned pain into purpose," Catherine said. "That's rare. That's survival," I replied. "When someone tries to make you feel small, you have 2 choices. Believe them, or prove them wrong so thoroughly that no one else ever believes them either." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. "Your grandmother would have loved this," Catherine said softly. "She always said the purpose of wealth was to open doors, not close them. You're living that philosophy. I wish I'd known her. She would have adored you. Stubborn, independent, refusing to let anyone define you. You're exactly like her." The party continued inside, but I stayed on the terrace a while longer, thinking about the strange journey that had led me here. A year ago, I'd been planning a wedding to a man who saw me as a project. A fixer-upper. Someone to mold into his ideal partner once he'd filed down all my rough edges and taught me how to be acceptable. Now I was planning galas that funded scholarships, mentoring women who reminded me of my younger self, building bridges between the world I was born into and the world I'd chosen. Marcus had been right about one thing: I didn't fit into his world. But not because I was too rough around the edges or too embarrassing or too anything. I didn't fit because his world was too small for me. Too shallow. Too obsessed with surfaces and status symbols and maintaining hierarchies that only served to keep people in their designated places. I belonged in a bigger world. One where value was measured in impact instead of income. Where worth was determined by character instead of connections. Where love meant accepting someone completely, not conditionally. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. Just got offered a full-time position at the Sheraton managing their corporate event. "Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." I smiled, typing back a quick congratulations, feeling that familiar warmth of purpose fulfilled. 3 months later, I was in my office reviewing proposals for the summer gala season when my assistant knocked on my door. "Elena, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important." "Who is it?" She hesitated. "Marcus Ashford." My stomach dropped. "Tell him I'm not available." I did. He said he'll wait. He's been in the lobby for 2 hours. I closed my eyes, weighing my options. I could have security escort him out. I could continue ignoring him. Or I could face him one final time and close this chapter definitively. Give me 10 minutes, then send him in. I spent those 10 minutes breathing deeply, centering myself, remembering who I was now. Not the heartbroken woman from the penthouse. Not even the vengeful one from the gala. Someone new. Someone stronger. When Marcus walked into my office, I barely recognized him. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by simple slacks and a button-down. The perfectly styled hair was longer, less controlled. His face looked thinner, older somehow. Like he'd aged years in months. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. "You have 5 minutes. What do you want, Marcus?" He sat down across from me, hands folded in his lap. "I wanted to apologize. Face to face. Not through a voicemail or a message you might delete. I wanted you to see me, hear me, and know that I mean it. You already apologized. I heard your voicemail. That wasn't enough. That was me processing my shame. This is me taking responsibility." He took a breath. "Elena, I was cruel to you. I was emotionally abusive. I used my perceived social status as a weapon to control you and make you doubt your own worth. I did that to you and to multiple other women, and there's no excuse for it. Not stress, not pressure from my family, not anything. I was wrong, and I hurt people because I was too insecure to value them for who they actually were." I studied him carefully. "Why now? Why this?" "The damage is done, Marcus. Your reputation is destroyed. Coming here doesn't fix that. I'm not here to fix my reputation. I'm here because I've spent the last 3 months in therapy, unpacking why I am the way I am, and I realized I never actually faced you. Never looked you in the eye and took full responsibility. I let lawyers and publicists handle the fallout. I ran away to California instead of staying and dealing with what I'd done. That's cowardice. So I came back. To do this right. Do what right exactly? The apology. The accountability. The acknowledgement that you deserved so much better than how I treated you." He leaned forward slightly. "You were extraordinary, Elena. You are extraordinary. You built a business from nothing. You worked harder than anyone I knew. You were kind and brilliant and genuine. And I tried to make you feel inadequate because I was terrified that if I didn't control the relationship, you'd realize you were too good for me. Which, ironically, you were." I let the silence sit for a moment. "Is that what your therapist told you to say?" "My therapist told me to be honest. This is honest. I was intimidated by you from the start. You had something I've never had, authenticity. You knew who you were. You didn't need external validation. And that scared me because my entire identity is built on what other people think of me. So I tried to tear you down to my level. Make you as insecure and validation-seeking as I am. That's quite an insight. It's the truth. And the other truth is that I can't undo what I did. I can't give you back the months you spent doubting yourself because of my words. I can't erase the humiliation I put you through. I can only promise that I'm working on becoming someone different. Someone better. Not for you. I know I lost you permanently, and I deserve that. But for the next person I might have hurt if I didn't change." I stood up, walking to the window. The city stretched out below us, full of people living their lives, fighting their battles, carrying their wounds. "You know what the hardest part was?" I said quietly. "Not the things you said. Not even the public humiliation. It was the fact that I loved you. I genuinely loved who I thought you were. And you made me question my own judgment. Made me wonder how I could have been so wrong about someone. That's what abuse does, Marcus. It makes you distrust yourself. I know. I'm sorry. Stop saying you're sorry." I turned to face him. "Sorry is a word. Sorry is easy. You want to actually make amends. Keep going to therapy. Keep doing the work. And when you meet the next woman who doesn't fit some arbitrary mold in your head, choose differently. See her instead of your expectations of her. Value her instead of judging her. Love her for who she is, not who you want to shape her into." "I will. I am." He stood up. "I also wanted you to know that I've enrolled in a program for men who've exhibited abusive behaviors in relationships. I'm learning about power dynamics, control tactics, all the things I was doing without even naming them. I'm trying to understand the patterns so I can break them." "Good. That's good, Marcus." He moved toward the door, then paused. "The Martinez Initiative. What you've built. It's incredible. You took the worst moment of your life and turned it into something that's helping so many people. That's who you are. That's the woman I was too blind and stupid to appreciate. Don't do that, I said sharply. Don't put me on a pedestal now. I'm not a saint. I'm not some perfect inspiration. I'm a person who got angry and fought back and happened to have resources that let me do it publicly. There are thousands of women who've been hurt worse than I was and don't have the luxury of revenge or reinvention. They're the strong ones. Not me. You're both. You're allowed to be both. After he left, I sat at my desk for a long time, processing. Some small part of me had expected to feel satisfaction at seeing him humbled, to enjoy his obvious suffering and remorse. But I didn't feel any of that. I just felt tired. And maybe a little bit hopeful that he actually meant what he said. That he'd actually do the work. Because here's what I'd learned in the months since the gala: revenge feels good in the moment, but it doesn't heal you. What heals you is building something new. Creating meaning from pain. Refusing to let someone else's cruelty define your story. Marcus had tried to make me smaller. Instead, I'd grown larger. Not because I'd destroyed him, but because I'd used what happened as fuel to become someone I was proud of. That night, I had dinner with both sets of my parents at a small Italian restaurant we'd all grown to love. No country club formality. Just family, sharing pasta and stories and laughter. I saw Marcus today, I mentioned casually over dessert. Sarah's fork paused halfway to her mouth. And he apologized. Properly this time. Took full responsibility. How do you feel about that? Miguel asked, ever the teacher, always asking the right questions. Neutral. I don't forgive him. I'm not ready for that, maybe never will be. But I also don't hate him anymore. He's just a person who hurt me once and is hopefully learning not to hurt other people. That's very mature of you, darling, Catherine said. That's therapy, I corrected with a smile. I've been doing my own work too. Figuring out why I accepted those comments for as long as I did before fighting back. Why I doubted myself instead of him. What patterns I might repeat if I'm not careful. Are you thinking about dating again? Richard asked. Eventually. Maybe. I don't know. I laughed. I'm in no rush. I'm building something I love, working with people who inspire me, reconnecting with family. Romance can wait until I meet someone who adds to my life instead of trying to reshape it. To Elena, Sarah raised her glass. Who taught an old dog that new tricks are possible, and showed the world that sometimes the best revenge is living well. To Elena, everyone echoed. 6 months after that, I was keynote speaking at a Women in Business conference when someone in the audience raised her hand during Q&A. Ms. Whitmore, my question is about your story with Marcus Ashford. You've talked about turning pain into purpose, but I want to know, do you have any regrets? Would you change anything if you could go back? I considered the question carefully. Would I change Marcus being cruel to me? Of course. I wish that had never happened. But would I change how I responded? No. Because that response led to everything good in my life right now. It led to reconciling with my biological parents. It led to the Martinez Initiative. It led to me standing here, talking to all of you. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is inevitable. But what we do with it? That's where our power lives. Marcus tried to define me by my perceived inadequacies. Instead, I defined myself by my response to his cruelty. And that made all the difference. The applause was thunderous. After the conference, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 25, with nervous energy and determination in her eyes. Ms. Whitmore, I'm Rachel. I was one of Marcus's girlfriends. Before you. I was too scared to come forward for the article, but I've been following your work. The initiative, your speaking, all of it. And I wanted to thank you. Because seeing you stand up to him, seeing you turn what happened into something positive, it helped me realize I wasn't crazy. He really did try to tear me down. It wasn't in my head. I pulled her into a hug. You weren't crazy. You were being manipulated. And I'm so glad you're free of it. I'm in college now, she said. Business school. I want to do what you do. Help other women see their value. Then you will. And when you do, I'll be right here cheering you on. That's the thing about surviving something painful, you become living proof that survival is possible. You become hope for someone else in the middle of their darkness. You become evidence that people can change, situations can improve, and strength can come from the most unexpected places. 2 years after the gala, the Martinez Initiative had placed over 300 women in careers across multiple industries. We'd expanded to 3 cities, with plans for 5 more. My event planning agency was one of the most sought after in the region. And I was in a relationship with someone who valued me exactly as I was, a literature professor named David who'd never heard of my family's money when we met at a bookstore, and didn't care when he found out. I still attended events at the Whitmore Country Club sometimes, but on my own terms. Not to prove anything. Not to impress anyone. Just to support causes I cared about and spend time with people I loved. Marcus, I'd heard, was doing better. Working for a non-profit in San Francisco, apparently. Genuinely trying to be a better person, according to mutual acquaintances. I didn't follow his life closely, but I hoped it was true. I hoped he'd actually learned. Not for me, but for whoever came after. One evening, I was going through applications for the initiative's mentorship program when I came across a name that stopped me cold. Veronica Ashford. Marcus's younger sister. I'd never met her, she'd been studying abroad during our relationship, but I knew of her. Her application essay was raw and honest. I watched my brother become someone I didn't recognize. I watched him hurt women who deserved better. And I realized that our family's wealth and status had poisoned us all in different ways. I want to learn how to use privilege responsibly. How to lift people up instead of keeping them down. Elena Whitmore did that after my brother tried to break her. I want to learn how to be strong like that. I stared at the application for a long time, then forwarded it to my selection committee with a single note. Yes. Absolutely yes. When Veronica came for her first mentorship meeting, she looked like she might throw up from nervousness. I wasn't sure you'd accept me, she admitted. Given everything Marcus did. You're not responsible for your brother's choices, I said gently. You're only responsible for your own. And you chose to apply here, to learn, to grow. That takes courage. He talks about you sometimes, she said quietly. When we have family dinners. He says you changed his life. Made him see himself clearly for the first time. He doesn't expect you to forgive him, but he's grateful anyway. I hope he stays on that path, I said honestly. Not for me. But because the world doesn't need more men like who he was. It needs more women like you, Veronica replied. 3 years after the gala, I received an invitation to speak at a TEDx event. The topic, when being underestimated becomes your greatest strength. I stood on that red circle, looking out at hundreds of faces, and told my story. Not as revenge. Not as vindication. But as testimony to the fact that other people's judgments of us are often reflections of their own limitations, not ours. Marcus Ashford called me embarrassing because he was embarrassed by his own shallow values, I said. He tried to make me feel small because he felt small inside. And the moment I understood that, the moment I realized his cruelty was never about my inadequacy, I was free. Free to build the life I wanted. Free to use my resources for good. Free to define success on my own terms. The video went viral. And my purpose wasn't proving him wrong about me. It was proving to countless others that they were right about themselves all along. 5 years after that night at the country club, I stood in the same ballroom where Marcus had tried to erase me. But this time, I was being honored. The Humanitarian of the Year award for the Martinez Initiative's work creating opportunities for over 1,000 women. Catherine and Richard sat at the head table, beaming with pride. Sarah and Miguel were beside them, tears streaming down their faces. David squeezed my hand as I approached the podium. Jasmine, now running her own successful event company, gave me a thumbs up from the audience. Veronica Ashford, thriving in her own career in social work, smiled at me with gratitude. And somewhere in California, I imagined, Marcus Ashford was living his life. Hopefully a better one than before. Hopefully one where he'd learned that love isn't about control, relationships aren't about status, and people's value doesn't change based on their tax brackets. I stood at that podium and looked out at the sea of faces, and I thought about the woman I'd been the last time I stood in this room. Heartbroken. You always will be. And anyone who can't see that is simply not looking closely enough. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. But the real victory? The real revenge? It was walking out of that ballroom at the end of the night, surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I was, knowing that I'd never again let someone else's opinion of me become my reality. Marcus Ashford had tried to teach me my place. Instead, he'd taught me my power. And that night, as I drove home past the glittering city lights, I realized something profound. I'd started this journey wanting revenge. I'd ended it finding redemption. Not his redemption. Mine. Redemption from the part of me that had ever believed I needed to be anything other than exactly who I was. Redemption from the voice that had whispered I wasn't enough. Redemption from every moment I'd made myself smaller to fit someone else's expectations. I pulled into my driveway, the modest house I'd bought with my own money, filled with furniture I'd chosen, decorated with art I loved, and I smiled. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about revenge: the best kind doesn't destroy your enemy. It frees you from caring what your enemy thinks. Marcus Ashford called me embarrassing, and I responded by becoming unforgettable. He tried to make me question my worth, and I responded by building an empire that measured worth differently. He wanted me to know my place, and I responded by creating a place where women like me could thrive. That's not revenge. That's revolution. And that night, nothing was ever the same again. Not because I'd destroyed him, but because I'd discovered me. So what would you do in this situation? Would you walk away quietly, or would you stand up and reclaim your power? Tell me in the comments below. And if you believe that no one has the right to make you feel small, hit that like button and subscribe. Because everyone deserves to know their worth, and sometimes, we all need a reminder that we're enough, exactly as we are. Humiliated. Angry. But also awakening. Rising. Becoming. When someone tries to make you feel small, I said into the microphone, my voice steady and strong, they're really just revealing the size of their own perspective. Don't shrink to fit into their limited vision. Don't apologize for being more than they can comprehend. Don't hide your light because someone else is afraid of the shadows it casts. Instead, shine brighter. Rise higher. Become so undeniably yourself that their judgment becomes irrelevant. Not because you've proven them wrong, but because you've proven yourself right. You are enough. You always were. You always will be. And anyone who can't see that is simply not looking closely enough. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. But the real victory? The real revenge? It was walking out of that ballroom at the end of the night, surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I was, knowing that I'd never again let someone else's opinion of me become my reality. Marcus Ashford had tried to teach me my place. Instead, he'd taught me my power. And that night, as I drove home past the glittering city lights, I realized something profound. I'd started this journey wanting revenge. I'd ended it finding redemption. Not his redemption. Mine. Redemption from the part of me that had ever believed I needed to be anything other than exactly who I was. Redemption from the voice that had whispered I wasn't enough. Redemption from every moment I'd made myself smaller to fit someone else's expectations. I pulled into my driveway, the modest house I'd bought with my own money, filled with furniture I'd chosen, decorated with art I loved, and I smiled. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about revenge: the best kind doesn't destroy your enemy. It frees you from caring what your enemy thinks. Marcus Ashford called me embarrassing, and I responded by becoming unforgettable. He tried to make me question my worth, and I responded by building an empire that measured worth differently. He wanted me to know my place, and I responded by creating a place where women like me could thrive. That's not revenge. That's revolution. And that night, nothing was ever the same again. Not because I'd destroyed him, but because I'd discovered me. So what would you do in this situation? Would you walk away quietly, or would you stand up and reclaim your power? Tell me in the comments below. And if you believe that no one has the right to make you feel small, hit that like button and subscribe. Because everyone deserves to know their worth, and sometimes, we all need a reminder that we're enough, exactly as we are.